Of Morning JOX right here on JOX 94.5. Conrad Van Order and John Saber here with you this morning. Damian Mitchell taking a day off, having a nice long weekend there to enjoy. And man, oh man, what a weekend it was. We have so much to get into today. A great weekend of SEC hoops Saturday. A lot of action here in the state of Alabama. Yesterday, Championship Sunday. We now know who's playing in the Super Bowl, and I know a lot of you probably a little disappointed in the matchup that we are going to be looking forward to for the next couple of weeks. But the Super Bowl is set. We have some big news in the world of college football as well. So just kind of all around a great weekend for sports and a ton of stuff for us to get into today. It's also 47 degrees when I woke up today instead of
4 or 7.
Yes, exactly. So it's funny what a difference a week will make here in the state of Alabama. It's going to be, I saw later in the week, 68 degrees.
Yep.
So that's just kind of how things go when you live here in the state of Alabama. But yes, definitely nice to get some warmer weather coming in. But let's start off recapping a big weekend here in the world of sports. Let's start off on the hardwood and what we saw Saturday in the SEC, and really just another day with a full slate of SEC basketball, where pretty much regardless of what game you had turned on, unless I guess you're a Georgia basketball fan, you had a lot of great entertainment going on here across the state as well. So let's start off on the plains of Auburn, because that was the big one, not only in the SEC but all of college basketball this weekend, as Auburn hosted number 6 Tennessee. Auburn, the number 1 team in the land, down there in Neville Arena, and just really a chaotic day overall. If you started off, College Game Day was down there. Seemed like things kind of got a little out of hand, unfortunately, when it came to getting wristbands to get into the game. You had, I guess, a stampede of students that were there waiting in line to get into game day, get in for their bracelets early on for the game on Saturday morning. And unfortunately, we heard a lot of reports of students, fans getting injured, people getting trampled over trying to get access into the game, and just unfortunately a sad way to start off what was an excellent day of basketball there on the plains of Auburn. But thoughts and prayers to all those that were injured out over there. Saw some, pictures. I'm sure a lot of you saw the same ones on social media of people getting stitches, reports of people with broken bones. And so unfortunate that that's how the day had to start off. But if anything, I guess it just kind of goes to show you the fervor that we've reached when it comes to not only SEC hoops, but particularly for teams here in the state. And not the way that you want things to get started off, but it was a great crowd there. You had game day there. It's cool to see a lot of the Auburn players there in attendance, just kind of soaking in the atmosphere early in the morning. Because, of course, you had game day early on, and then tip-off wasn't until ended up being a little after 7:30 on Saturday. So, but a great showing there in Neville Arena, as many people would have expected. It was loud. The fans were getting into it. It just seemed like, even watching on TV, like it was such a great atmosphere. And I'm sure, many of you were able to go down there and experience it for what it was. But this was just a good old-fashioned, if you like hard-nosed physical basketball, this was the game for you. It was 22-20 at halftime.
In basketball, not football.
Yeah, in basketball. And this is maybe not a huge shock because it's Tennessee. Auburn, obviously one of the better offensive teams in the country. Tennessee known a little more for their defense. They were holding opponents to right around 58 points a game going into this one. So not the biggest surprise that ended up being a lower scoring affair. But this was the kind of game that Tennessee wanted it to be. And essentially it was a knockout, drag out kind of fight, for 40 minutes there down in Neville Arena. But you had, I think, the big moment, obviously, Janai Broome coming in, didn't start the game technically, but he played 33 minutes, came in, about 16 minute mark of the first half. So came in very early, essentially started the game. But I guess for statistical purposes, he did come off the bench, but Janai Broome was incredible coming off that ankle injury, hadn't played in a few weeks there for Auburn, but all he does is come off the bench, give you 33 minutes and go for 16 points, 13 rebounds. He led all scorers in the game, which again, it it goes to show where, for the first few or the last few games in SEC play, Auburn did a great job of having other players step up, finding ways to distribute the ball, get other guys opportunities to kind of step up in his absence. But going up against Tennessee, it was definitely the toughest test that Auburn was going to have to deal with since the injury. And so getting him back was absolutely massive. He was making plays all over the court for Auburn. He also had 4 blocks on the night, 7 offensive rebounds by himself for the Auburn Tigers. Auburn had 15 as a team. Jedi Broom had 7 of them, all by himself. So
and they needed basically every bit of that because Baker Mazzara went out with that head injury or potential concussion or whatever. So they were down a key aspect of that, and Broom was just like, okay, fine, I'll do more, no problem.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And to that point with Baker Mazzara, he did give you 33 minutes as well, but he didn't make a single shot from the field. Did make all 7 of his free throw attempts though. But when you look at, Janai Broom coming back was huge. But if you went into this game and said, yeah, Chad Baker Mazzara and Denver Jones aren't going to hit a shot from the floor and Auburn's going to win, I don't know if too many people would have agreed with you on that, but that's ultimately what happened. Baker Mazzara goes 0 for 5 from the floor. Denver Jones 0 for 8 from the floor. But they go a combined 9 for 9 from the free throw line. So still finding ways to contribute there. But Chaney Johnson gives you 10 points there and some big minutes there in the starting lineup. Miles Kelly gives you 6 points, but of course none more important than the final shot that he made as he made the 3-pointer there with about 30 seconds to go to put Auburn up 52-51 late. And then Tennessee has a chance. Milicic goes up for a little jumper, isn't able to get it to fall, and ultimately Auburn is able to hang on when Tennessee, they have a chance to drop a final play. Zakai Ziegler gets a 3 in the corner. It's no good. Janai Broom gets the rebound, and ultimately Auburn is able to run out the clock and seal the 53-51 victory over the Tennessee Volunteers. And what's been a season of memorable and very impressive wins for Auburn, this one certainly rises to the top, and it just goes to show, you're going to have to play different styles of ball here in the SEC depending on who you play night in and night out. And for Auburn getting to a big win over a top 10 Tennessee team at home, they stay undefeated in SEC play. Auburn now 18-1 on the season, 6-0 in SEC play. Tennessee falls to 17-3. They are now 4-3 in conference play. And this was a big one for Tennessee in the sense of, if you're looking to get the regular season title, potentially get a 1 seed in the SEC tournament, this was a game you were probably going to need to win.
You really needed it, yeah.
Yeah, because now, as it sits right now, you're about, 2.5, 3 games behind Auburn, however the math checks out there. But just looking at what you have with them, Alabama, who we'll get to in a minute, only having 1 loss in the SEC, it's going to be a little bit of an uphill battle here for the Tennessee Volunteers. And reality is, we talk with Wimp Sanderson every Friday on 3-Man Front. I know he's on Mac and Cube every Thursday. Excuse me. And he's said pretty much all season long that the expectation is, if there's a team that goes 15-3 in the SEC, that's probably that will be good enough to win it. Maybe 14-4 is ultimately where the regular season champ ends up. But, you look at Tennessee now and you're pretty much looking at having to win out the rest of the way in SEC play. So another great win for Auburn, another quad 1 win. Auburn now 11-1 in quad 1 games. And truly, we'll keep talking about this as the season progresses, but with the pace that Auburn is on right now, they are going to have one of the best resumes that we've ever seen in a basketball season or a regular season of college basketball. It's just absolutely ridiculous what they're doing. For context, the second best team in quad 1 games in the SEC right now is Kentucky. They are 6-5. Auburn is 11-1.
Oof. And Auburn has plenty of opportunities to rack up a few more with Ole Miss, Florida, Alabama twice, Ole Miss twice, actually, Kentucky and A&M still on the docket. So, yeah.
Yes. So, So as I just said, is if this continues for Auburn, we are going to be looking at historically one of the great regular seasons, at least in modern college basketball, and one of the strongest resumes going into an NCAA tournament that we probably will have seen in quite some time. So a great win for the Auburn Tigers. Again, they take down the Tennessee Volunteers 53-51 there in Neville Arena over the weekend. But at the same time, over across the state in Coleman Coliseum, you had a game going on at the exact same time as Alabama hosted LSU down there at Coleman Coliseum. And again, a game that probably a little closer than you were hoping it would be if you're an
Right. Yeah.
Alabama
Yeah.
fan. Not a game that you were expecting to be sweating out into the final seconds, but that's ultimately exactly how it went on Saturday. And of course, the big story, which we can get to in a minute, but the big story, Mark Sears sits out the second half, very similar to what you saw in the Illinois game back earlier in the season at the end of last year, where again, just shots weren't falling. And you saw Mark Sears kind of sit out the second half of that game. And it's like, hey, the other guys are, giving us the best chance to win. So he sits out in that game. You got the same thing against LSU, and a lot of drama and controversy surrounding that we can get to here in a little bit. But yeah, Mark Sears, he goes scoreless for Alabama. So who's going to pick up the slack? Well, you had 5 guys in double figures for the Crimson Tide, led by Aiden Holloway, who again, 29 minutes for you off the bench, and more of, I know a lot of people probably watch the game and go, man, is there not a way we can find this guy in a way to get into the starting lineup again? But if you listen to Nate Oates has said for the last couple of games now, how big it is having a spark like Aiden Holloway off the bench from a scoring perspective. And that's exactly what he has done for the Crimson Tide, especially in SEC play. But he gives you 19 points, 3 for 8 from behind the 3-point line for the Crimson Tide. Mo Diabate, another big game. He gives you 14 points off the bench to go along with 6 rebounds. Grant Nelson gives you 12 and 3. And then Chris Youngblood gives you 13 points and 5 rebounds as well there for Alabama. But again, a game that was essentially back and forth for the entire first half. It's all tied up at 40 there at halftime. And I mean, credit to LSU, right? They couldn't, they couldn't hit a shot from deep. They go 3 of 23 from behind the 3-point line for the game.
That was awful. Ugh, it was ugly.
It was rough, but the fact that you shoot it that poorly and you're still neck and neck with the best scoring team in all of college basketball on the road at halftime. Again, it's just one of those games where you can look at it from the standpoint of, should Alabama have handled their competition better? Yeah, they did not play their best basketball. But I think it also goes to show that even a team like LSU, who's at the bottom of the barrel, one of the 2 or 3 probably worst teams in the SEC this year, that any given night, even a team like that can come in and give you all that you ask for. So big shout out to LSU. Cam Carter gives him 17 points. Jordan Sears, I don't think anybody had the other Sears being the highest scorer in this game on Saturday night, but Jordan Sears off the bench for LSU gives him 21 points. And yeah, just a bit of an uncharacteristic game for Alabama. Shots weren't falling quite where you want them to, but another good game from the free throw line, because that's been an issue for Alabama at times this year. But they go 19 of 24 from the free throw line. You do turn it over 14 times, which isn't exactly where you want to be, but only 30% shooting from behind the 3-point line. Only 7 threes made on Saturday, but fortunately for Alabama, when you needed them, you got them. And ultimately able to hang on there for the 80-73 win. And so now you turn your attention, 17-3 overall and 6-1 in SEC play. LSU 12-7 now on the season, only 1-5 in SEC play. But now you look ahead to Wednesday. It's not Tuesday this week, it's Wednesday. You're going to have both Auburn and Alabama back in action. Alabama going to go on the road to Mississippi State in a top 15 matchup there in Starkville. That game is going to be at 8 o'clock on the SEC network. And then Auburn, LSU, going to be tired of teams from the state of Alabama here, as Auburn now travels to Baton Rouge to take on LSU. That game is going to be at 6 o'clock on the SEC network. So you get back-to-back, Auburn and Alabama on Wednesday instead of simultaneous tip-off times as we've had to deal with the last couple of times out. But that was the big news here from across the state. You also had UAB taking on Memphis. Unfortunately, UAB just kind of ran into a bit of a buzzsaw with Memphis. Memphis takes it 100-77 over the Blazers. Again, look, UAB's been playing good basketball in the American. They had a good winning streak going, but you're going up against a Memphis team that, they have some big wins already on their resume from earlier in the season. Of course, I think a lot of people remember the win they got over UConn in their early season tournament. And Memphis has certainly looked like the best team in the American this season. And unfortunately, yeah, just a tough place to go play for UAB yesterday as they fall 100-77 to the Memphis Tigers. But we did have, again, outside of Alabama and Auburn, just a wild weekend of SEC hoops. So we have Texas coming back from a huge deficit to knock off their bitter rivals, the Texas A&M Aggies. John Calipari in Arkansas, you get all that goodwill from the Georgia win. And then we're all kind of reminded of who you are in the first place as they have a tough time against Oklahoma, but a lot still to get to from the SEC basketball weekend. And of course, the AFC and NFC championships, as we now know who is going to be playing in the Super Bowl. So we continue breaking down the weekend in SEC hoops as well as the NFL postseason when we return right here on JOX 94.5. 6:20 a.m. here on your Monday morning, Morning JOX, JOX 94.5. Conrad and Saber here with you until the 7 o'clock hour, recapping a busy weekend here around the SEC as well as in the NFL postseason. Also, some college football news to get to from over the weekend. But continuing where we left off, just going through, recapping a little bit from the SEC weekend before we get to the NFL postseason. You had another big weekend for Vanderbilt athletics as early on Saturday, they started the day off right for SEC play as Vanderbilt, who was hosting number 9 Kentucky up there in Nashville. And this was a great basketball game. Vanderbilt gets out to a big lead there in the first half, 41-27. You're kind of watching them coast along like, man, are they going to be able to hold on to this? And lo and behold, Kentucky comes storming back in the second half. And this was a great basketball game for the last, I don't know, 8-9 minutes, what have you there in the second half, where it was truly just back and forth between Vanderbilt and Kentucky. But Vanderbilt ultimately is now able to hold on for the win, 74-69. The fans stormed the court. You even had the security guards lined up, if you were watching, right there kind of on the baseline, kneeled down like in a formation trying to hold back the students. And ultimately that did not work out. And so now, I know many jokes have been made, but you look at the last, 6 months or so for Vanderbilt athletics, you knock off Alabama at home in football, you knock off Tennessee in basketball a couple weeks ago. Now you knock off Kentucky. And that's three court stormings right there. So that certainly hurts.
It's gotten pricey too.
Yeah, I was about to say, hurts the old pocketbook a little bit now if you're Vanderbilt. But I'm sure you'll take it and be happy to see the successes continue on into basketball season. But yeah, another big win. Vanderbilt upsets Kentucky there in Nashville. I mentioned it before the break, but you had Texas A&M and Texas in a game where Texas A&M, they're up 43-25 at halftime. It gets up to a 22-point lead for the Aggies in the second half. And Texas just out of nowhere flips a switch and comes all the way back. They're able to go down the court, hit a shot with just a couple of seconds remaining, and get the win 70-69 over Texas A&M. Just an absolutely brutal loss for the Aggies there, and a huge win as Texas is slowly but surely starting to find their feet here in the SEC, starting to heat up a little bit, getting on a little bit of a winning streak here in SEC play as they are now 14-6 on the season, 3-4 in SEC play. Texas A&M falls to 15-5 and 4-3 in SEC play. Trey Johnson with 30 points for the Longhorns there in that one. You had another great game. Mississippi State and South Carolina goes to overtime. Mississippi State gets the win 65-60, and just the latest in a string of heartbreaks for South Carolina here to start off SEC play. They're now 0-7 in conference play, the only team without a win left in the SEC. And you pair this with what happened against Florida last week, where they're up for essentially the entire game, and then Florida scores with about 4 seconds left to pull out that victory. Obviously, the Auburn game from a couple of weeks ago was very close, very competitive. It's been a rough start of things for South Carolina, but Mississippi State moves to 16-4 in the year, 4-3 in the SEC. Missouri wins over Ole Miss 83-75, a big win for Missouri, kind of getting back on their feet. And then you also had Oklahoma and Arkansas, and another game where Arkansas was in it until the end. They had an opportunity with seconds remaining. John L. Davis misses a layup. They would have put Arkansas up 64-63. Oklahoma gets the rebound. They go get a slam dunk to kind of put an exclamation mark, and they get the victory 65-62. So Coach Cal now back looking for answers after that big win over Georgia. You thought maybe that would get things going for the Razorbacks, but unfortunately not the case. And then the blowout of the weekend, you had Georgia taking a fall to the Florida Gators there in Gainesville. Florida beats Georgia by 30, 89-59, not even close. A great win there for Florida as they now move to 18-2 and 5-2 in the SEC. Another historic start to the year there for the Florida Gators. But now let's get to the big stories from yesterday, that being the AFC and NFC championships. One of these games was exactly as advertised. It was everything that we could have wanted it to be, albeit with some controversy. And then the other game was fun for a little bit, I guess.
Or maybe as expected, like some of us thought.
or as expected as some of us thought. I'll be the first to admit I was riding the hot hand of Jaden Daniels, and I thought, man, the Commanders coming in here. Jalen Hurts is banged up, hasn't quite looked like himself for a couple of weeks now. I feel like this maybe sets up for the Commanders to continue their Cinderella story. Yeah, that didn't happen.
Then you realize Dan Quinn is on the other sideline, and Jaden Daniels is a rookie, and rookies are now 0-6 in their rookie season in conference championship games.
Yeah, and unfortunately, ball security was, I feel like that's something we're going to be seeing a lot of practice film on for the Commanders in the offseason, because that's ultimately where a lot of things went wrong for the Commanders. You turn the ball over 4 times. Philadelphia turns it over 0. You have 3 fumbles, just absolutely brutal fumbles over the course of the game. And then if Jaden Daniels throws an interception late, trying to force a throw downfield. And it was just that kind of day for the Commanders. Very similar in a lot of ways to what you saw kind of the inverse of when they played the Lions, right? Where the Lions just couldn't get out of their own way. They kept turning the ball over. They were fine offensively, just like the Commanders. I mean, the Commanders were moving the ball. They were able to score early. It was just too many possessions given away to the Philadelphia Eagles, as the Philadelphia Eagles win 55-23, the most points scored in an NFC Championship game ever. As the Philadelphia Eagles top the 50 mark, it was just, I mean, what more can you say about Saquon Barkley and what he's done for the Philadelphia Eagles this year? I know, in my lifetime, Derrick Henry going for over 2,000 yards. Adrian Peterson, the year that he went for over 2,000. You got Chris Johnson there with the Titans when he went for 2,000 yards as well. I remember, very well some of the years that LaDainian Tomlinson put together there with the Chargers, breaking the record for most rushing touchdowns in a season. And all of those are fantastic seasons. But seeing what Saquon Barkley has done now for the first 2 games here of this postseason, and we'll see what he does in the Super Bowl for the finale. This is maybe the best season I've seen from a running back in my lifetime, just in terms of what he is able to do and coming up with big play after big play. Now in the first 2 postseason games for the Eagles this year, Saquon Barkley has 3 rushing touchdowns of 60 yards or more. Absolutely ridiculous. And after what he did against the Rams in the divisional round, you come into this matchup and you're thinking, surely, the Commanders are going to find a way to sell it against the run. He's not going to be able to break one of these big runs. They're going to, make Jalen Hurts beat them. And all Saquon Barkley does early on in the game is go for a 60-yard rushing touchdown.
Felt a lot like Forrest Gump going back to meet the president. He's like, well, I got in the middle again and went to go meet the president again. Saquon Barkley had another 60-plus yard touchdown run again.
Yeah, it was it was just watching, it also kind of reminded me a little bit of what you saw in the national championship game, where you have, so the Commanders go on just, this crazy long drive to start off. It's a 7-minute drive, 18 plays. Ultimately, you have to settle for a field goal. But it's one of those set the tone drives, right? It's all right, maybe we didn't get into the end zone, but we're able to move the ball. We're able to burn some clock. All right, let's play some ball. The Eagles get the ball right back. First play from scrimmage, boom, Saquon Barkley 60 yards
Done.
to the house.
Yep, to the house.
And you're just kind of sitting there going, oh, okay, yep, they maybe this team just has a little bit of an advantage from a talent standpoint, and some of these guys are just absolutely ridiculous. But Saquon Barkley, yeah, he takes it to the house. He then adds on a second rushing touchdown there on the Eagles' next drive. So it's 14-3 early on in the first quarter, and you're starting to think, okay, maybe this thing's going to get sideways. But credit to the Commanders as they are able to make a comeback. They get it to 14-12. They go for 2, aren't able to get it there in the second quarter. But from that point on, it was essentially all Eagles the rest of the way there. But yeah, Saquon Barkley, he finishes with 15 carries for 118 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns on the day. Jalen Hurts, a nice day. He has a rushing touchdown as well, but he goes 20 of 28 for 246 yards and a touchdown. Made some really nice throws, especially early on in this game for a guy that was banged up and had a lot of criticisms about him after the first game from the postseason and kind of the way that he looked at the end of the year. But he comes out, looked really sharp. A.J. Brown has a big game. 6 catches for 96 yards and a touchdown. I think Landon Dickerson did a great job having to fill in there at center for large parts of the game. You could tell he was banged up. He ultimately they rearranged the offensive line in the second half because their center who sat out at the beginning of the game couldn't go through warmups. He then decides I'm going to give it a go in the second half to kind of give them some depth there on the offensive line because you could tell that those guys were beaten up there for the Eagles, but it just really didn't matter. And the Eagles go on again to win 55-23, just an absolutely dominant victory as the Philadelphia Eagles now march on to New Orleans and Super Bowl 59, where they will face the Kansas City Chiefs in a rematch of Super Bowl 57, which I know a lot of people are maybe not the most excited about. We were hoping for some different faces, and we almost got them. The Bills got very, very close, but as has become customary, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs find themselves back in the Super Bowl. But
Well, at least you didn't score with under a minute left and let them score again.
yes, it did have a little bit of a different ending, but unfortunately, the end result was the same for the Buffalo Bills. So when we come back here on Morning Jocks and Jocks 94.5, we'll recap the AFC Championship game, get into a little bit of the controversy. Was it a first down for Josh Allen? Was it not a first down? Are the refs helping the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes yet again? A lot of drama surrounding this one, but a great game last night in the AFC Championship. We'll break it all down for you when we return here on Morning Jocks. Well, it was the game that we were all hoping to see in the AFC Championship for the fourth time in the last 5 years. Kansas City versus Buffalo. This time a trip to the Super Bowl on the line. Will the Chiefs dynasty continue, or will Josh Allen and the Bills, is this finally their year? Could they finally get over the hump and reach the promised land with the chance of becoming world champions? It set up great. The storylines were great. This was the game we all wanted to see. Feels like for the last handful of postseasons, this has been the matchup to watch. Heading into the Super Bowl, getting prepared for the Super Bowl. And sometimes you just can't go against greatness. Sometimes certain things, certain people are inevitable. And it kind of just feels that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs at this point have become inevitable.
Those teams, when they face each other, at least with those quarterbacks, face each other 9 times. Buffalo has won 4 of them. Kansas City's won 5. Like that, all right, that's pretty close. That's back and forth. That's about what you expect.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, all 4 of Buffalo's wins are in weeks 1 through 6 or 17.
Yep.
All of Kansas City's wins have been in the second season in more or less January. I think there was a late regular season, whatever, but still, and when it
matters
more
most.
mattered. Yes, correct.
Yeah, it man, you feel for the Buffalo Bills, and just watching Josh Allen on the sideline there at the end of that game. It really did feel like this was the year, this was the opportunity again. I know the Chiefs, they go 15-2 in the regular season, and the last game, they're resting all their starters. They get blown out by a Denver team trying to make the postseason. Nobody puts much stock into that. So, and a lot of people, they're 15-1 essentially. And your one loss came to the Buffalo Bills in the regular season, which, as Saber said, they've had your number in the regular season. It's just unfortunate that if you're the Buffalo Bills, Kansas City's had your number in the postseason. And so, going into the game last night, you're expecting a close game. You're expecting, okay, well, it seems pretty fitting that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs will get the ball back with, 2 minutes or so to go in the fourth quarter. They'll have an opportunity to drive down the field. And whether it's a field goal, a touchdown, whatever it is that they need, they'll probably get it and win in dramatic fashion that way. And if you buy into the narrative on social media, it probably would have been on the back of a pass interference call or a holding penalty or something in a key moment that benefited the Kansas City Chiefs. And it didn't quite go that way, but there certainly was still some controversy to go with it. But at least through the first half, this was an excellent football game where, again, the Chiefs go up early on. They're able to get out to a 21-10 lead, and you're looking at this going, man, they're going to get the ball to start the second half. This could get ugly pretty quickly here. But credit to the Bills and Josh Allen as they're able to drive down the field and score a touchdown late there in the first half to kind of make things a little more interesting. And you ultimately get it to 21-16 there going into halftime. You're not able to get the 2-point conversion. Fortunately, this game came down to a 3-point margin and not a 1 or a 2-point margin. Because a lot of criticism for Sean McDermott, because one time you score a touchdown, you kick the extra point, but there's a penalty on the Chiefs, so you take the point off the board and decide to go for 2 from the 1-yard line. You have one of the worst quarterback sneaks I've ever seen, where Josh Allen, who's 250 pounds, essentially just falls to the ground and crumples immediately. It was not it was not a 1-yard rushing touchdown like we've seen Josh Allen do.
Ugly.
Many times this year. It was just ugly. So you leave a point on the board there. You go for 2 later on in the game. You don't get it there either. So you did leave 2 points on the board. I guess technically 4, but ultimately that didn't come down and end up being the difference in the game. But then you come out in the second half. Buffalo, great job defensively in the third quarter, forcing Kansas City to punt it away on both of their possessions there in the third quarter after not having to punt it all in the first half. Buffalo gets 6 points there in the third quarter. So you're going into it. It's pretty neck and neck. And unsurprisingly, right, the Chiefs they score early in the fourth quarter to go up 29-22. So Josh Allen gets the ball back with about 10 minutes to go in the game. You're like, all right, this is an opportunity here. This is, a big boy drive right here. Ultimately able to get the Bills down in to scoring position. You get a 1st and goal. And of course, just for, a flair for the dramatic, right? It has to go to 4th and goal. And Josh Allen finds Curtis Samuel in the back of the end zone there to kick the extra point. It's 29-29 with about 6 minutes left to go. And you're like, all right, this gives, Patrick Mahomes, he's going to have time to go and answer. But it looks like it's going to shape up that Josh Allen is going to have an opportunity to drive down the field and potentially win this game and send the Bills to the Super Bowl. So the Chiefs they drive down, get a 35-yard field goal from Harrison Butker, makes it 32-29 with 3.5 minutes to go in Arrowhead Stadium, a trip to the Super Bowl on the line. Everything you could have asked for if you were a Bills fan, if you're Josh Allen, the game's in your hands. You have an opportunity on the road to kind of exercise your demons, get the monkey off your back, whatever you want to call it, and finally get over that hump. And the Bills are driving down the field. You have a 3rd down play. Pass goes to the tight end. He gets marked short. I'll be completely honest. I think that play in and of itself, that ended up being a 9-yard completion. It looked to me like he got the first down.
I thought he did.
On 3rd and 10. It looked like a first down based on where his knee was as he was falling down, trying to make kind of a second effort to get it across for a first down. But the officials, they mark it short. So you get a 4th and 1. And so what are you going to do? You got Josh Allen. He's a beast back there. You're going to try to do a tush push. And snap the ball. Moves forward across the goal line.
Feel like you literally half-assed it because you only got one part of the tush.
Yeah. Not the prettiest, not quite. They don't have it quite down as well as the Philadelphia Eagles have. I know it's worked very well for them this year. I'll be honest, from every angle that I saw on television, it looked like he got it. You had one official who was clearly marking it as he had gotten over the 40-yard line. The other official on the other side of the screen comes running across. He's marking it about a half-yard short. Ultimately, it gets overruled, and to one official who marked it short, that's the ruling that stands. And look, I get it. It's a game of inches. You can look and go, well, Buffalo shouldn't have been in that position anyways. But you had back-to-back plays where it felt like, I think to pretty much everyone watching the game that wasn't a biased Chiefs fan, you're able to sit there and go, it kind of feels like, shouldn't they take another look at that at the very least? Are they not going to bring the chains out here and try to measure it? But no, they're going to go with the spot on the field. They don't think that it's worth, reviewing and overturning. And ultimately, that's where the Bills' dreams go to die there on a 4th and 1 that, look, I'm sorry, from every camera angle imaginable, he got over the line and it was a first down. I don't know how that call was not made.
Clearly see the space in between his numbers was across the line.
Yes.
Now, granted, could you see the ball was across? No, but you could tell.
It's reasonable to expect.
The ball was on the other side of that jersey up near his chest and in his heart. That's where the ball was. At least the nose of that was on that line, if not across. I felt like they did get across. And I think I was watching the game, but I didn't have the audio on, but it looked like Romo was saying how the official at the top of the screen was running down, and he kind of drew the line. Was like, you could see he's running down, he's showing that it is, and the guy coming from the other sideline was a little bit short, and honestly, it looked like he kind of was on it, but then kind of strayed as he was running in, kind of strayed towards being short. So it's got to be frustrating, annoying, but again, if you're a Bills fan, hey, at least it wasn't hey, you scored and left them 12 seconds to get to overtime or something. It was something that, granted, the refs did ultimately were a factor in it. It wasn't a blatant or no call. Like, you even saw, I want to say it was the play to Dalton Kincaid that he had in his hands and it ended up dropping.
Yeah, the Hail Mary, essentially. Yeah.
It was Chris Jones, whatever, that tackled Josh Allen. Like, he did a perfect tackle. Like, he speared him, and then, like, as soon as he touched him, like, he let him go, let him drop. There was no way, no chance that he was going to get a roughing the passer penalty. But I feel bad for Buffalo, but also make it stop, man.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it comes down to, because you did have an opportunity there at the end to get the ball back because you had timeouts. The Chiefs still had to get, I mean, if they didn't get a first down, you were going to get the ball back with no timeouts, but a
But
minute
time,
and a half,
some
maybe
time,
something
yeah.
like that, left to go, and an opportunity because I mean you're only down 3, right? You just need to go and kick a field goal to
Correct,
send
yeah.
it to overtime. But yeah, you're not able to get a stop there late, and you mentioned it. You feel bad for Dalton Kincaid because of course he's the one we were talking about on the play before the controversial 4th and 1 where you had the 3rd and 3. He gets a little, he runs a little route, catches the pass, looks like he falls across his knee maybe is down right in front of the line to gain, but he's stretching out with the ball across the goal or across the line for a first down, and ultimately it's ruled short. Then you have the situation with Josh Allen where he gets stuffed, and the controversial spot on the field, and then that happens, and then you did have at the very end, like you mentioned, the opportunity where it was 4th down and 5. Kansas City essentially sends the house. You have a cornerback blitz where the guy's just completely uncovered. Josh Allen has to spin around, and to be honest, all things considered, on that kind of Hail Mary that you got from Josh Allen at the end of the game, I mean, pretty good throw, all things considered,
Yeah.
just kind of giving somebody an opportunity, seeing Kincaid down the field. And look, I understand you're not looking for that. That's not the route that you were trying to run, but being able to come back to the ball. And, I hate saying in that kind of a situation that you have to catch that, but in the NFL and that kind of a moment, those are the kinds of plays you need to have if you're going to beat the 2-time defending champions at their home field in the AFC title game. And unfortunately, it goes through Dalton Kincaid's hands as he's diving back towards the ball. It hits the ground, and then ultimately the Chiefs are able to get a couple of first downs thanks to Isaiah Pacheco and then Samaje Perine there at the end of the game. So another just heartbreaking loss for the Buffalo Bills. Again, they fall now winless in the Patrick Mahomes era against the Chiefs in the postseason. And so they get now another offseason of searching for answers of how to finally get over this hump. Because again, this was a Kansas City Chiefs team that, they played well, situationally. Patrick Mahomes did what he needed to do. He had 2 rushing touchdowns, also 43 rushing yards on the day. Xavier Worthy had a big day. He had 85 receiving yards and a touchdown as well. But I mean, Travis Kelce, only 2 catches for 19 yards. You weren't running the ball super well. You're averaging over under 4 yards a carry if you're the Chiefs, but it was just ultimately, fundamentally sound. You can just tell watching Patrick Mahomes and that team operate in crunch time. They just look completely unfazed, right? That looks like their natural element, and it's just something that's so uncommon to see, but it's so incredibly impressive. And look, I get it. I'm like a lot of you. I would like to have seen somebody other than the Kansas City Chiefs going to the Super Bowl, but sometimes you just have to appreciate greatness. And now Kansas City gets a chance to do something that has never been done before and win 3 straight Super Bowl titles as they will take on the Philadelphia Eagles yet again in a rematch of Super Bowl 59 down in New Orleans coming up 2 weeks from yesterday there in New Orleans. So that's your NFL postseason recap from the weekend. We're going to have a week off, then the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. So a lot of time to get ready for that matchup. But we did have some big news in the world of college football, a coaching change in the Big Ten that could have big implications for the 2025 season. We'll tell you the latest when we come back, put a bow on things here on JOX 94.5. Welcome back into Morning Jocks here on your Monday morning, recapping a busy weekend of SEC hoops as well as the NFL postseason. As we now know, the Chiefs and the Eagles will do battle down in New Orleans for Super Bowl 59. Some big news coming out of the college football world over the weekend as well, though, as Ohio State defensive coordinator Jim Knowles, it turns out that he is going to become the next defensive coordinator at Penn State. If you remember, Penn State lost their defensive coordinator, Tom Allen, earlier in the offseason to the Clemson Tigers. So all they go out and do is replace him with, in my opinion, the best defensive coordinator in college football right now, Jim Knowles, who's done a great job at Ohio State the past couple of seasons. Ohio State, the number one defense in the nation this past year en route to their national championship. So he's expected to sign a 3-year deal that's going to be worth $3.1 million per season, making Jim Knowles the highest paid coordinator in all of college sports. And based on at least public information, the first coordinator to crack the $3 million a year mark in college football. So a big payday there for Jim Knowles and kind of a surprise to me. Look, I understand he's from, I guess, kind of around that area. And so maybe it's a chance for him to go back home, but you would think that Ohio State would have probably matched it or gotten close to it in order to keep him in line. But yeah, now Ryan Day coming off his first national championship, having to go and replace his defensive coordinator. So that will be interesting to see how that plays out. Quickly, some of your text here on the Super Bowl matchup. We have Andrew who texted and says Jalen Hurts is about to make all the Swifties cry in 2 weeks. We have a text coming in. No one believed the Bills had a chance to win against the Chiefs and the refs. Yeah, that narrative's certainly not going away. Let's see. Doug texted in, wow, Buffalo cheated. The disappearing flag, the change spot, and the catch where the ball hit the ground before possession was established. Yeah, there were some controversial calls all around there as well. So a wild weekend of sports, great NFL action, great SEC hoops action, and more of it coming your way because McElroy and Kublik in the morning, they're next.